What if I told you one Gary Cooper adventure was loved by American audiences, screened for British royalty, and reportedly admired by Adolf Hitler? That movie was The Lives of Bengal Lancer, Paramount's 1935 adventure full of bravery, brotherhood, sacrifice, and old Hollywood spectacle. On the surface, it is a rousing story of soldiers on the edge of an empire. But behind the shining uniforms is a stranger story, one about star power, studio illusion, national mythology, and how a movie can be remembered for meanings its makers may have never intended. So let's count down 20 fascinating facts about The Lives of Bengal Lancer, the Gary Cooper adventure that thrilled 1935 audiences, helped build a Hollywood legend, and became far more fascinating than it first appears. Number 20. American audiences saw a grand Gary Cooper adventure. To many moviegoers in 1935, The Lives of Bengal Lancer was simply a terrific night at the movies. It had Gary Cooper at his quietly heroic best, Francois Tone bringing wit and polish, Richard Cromwell adding youthful emotion, and a story packed with danger, loyalty, sacrifice, and daring rescue. For Depression-era audiences, that mattered. Here was a world where courage still counted. Friendship could be tested, and brave men could hold the line when everything around them looked dangerous. That is part of why the film was so compelling. It sold nerve, honor, and brotherhood, all wrapped in Paramount spectacle. Number 19. Gary Cooper's character was reportedly adjusted because of his accent. Let's start with one of the most human old Hollywood details. The story takes place in a British military world, but Gary Cooper was not exactly the easiest actor to disguise as a polished British officer. Turner Classic Movies notes that his character was made Canadian, which helped explain why he did not sound quite like the others. That is such a revealing studio-era trick. Rather than force the star into the role bent around the star. And honestly, that may be part of why Cooper works so well. He feels slightly apart from the world around him, inside the system, but he'd never completely swallowed by it. Number 18. The movie's India was often California in disguise. One of the great surprises behind The Lives of Bengal Lancer is that much of its faraway frontier world was created in California. According to the American Film Institute, filming locations included Independence, Lone Pine, Chatsworth, and Malibu. Paramount sent hundreds of cast and crew members to help build the illusion of India's northwest frontier. Give Hollywood enough horses, dust, costumes, extras, and dramatic lighting, and suddenly California can become the edge of an empire. For audiences in 1939, that illusion worked. They wanted a world big enough to believe in. Number 17. Real India footage helped sell the illusion. Here's where the Hollywood magic gets even better. AFI reports that Ernest B. Shedsack, one of the filmmakers associated with King Kong, went to India and shot footage before the main Hollywood production. That material helped give the film a sense of scale and distance. Even though much of the drama was created on American locations and studio sets, the movie could still borrow texture from real places and landscapes. That is what makes the film's world feel larger than the sets themselves. It is not completely real, and it is not completely fake. It is old Hollywood blending travel, spectacle, imagination into something audiences wanted to believe. Number 16. The story came from a book, but only loosely. The title comes from Francis Yeats Brown's book, but according to AFI, contemporary trade reports said the finished movie kept little more than the title and general setting. That is such a classic studio-era move. Hollywood brought a recognizable property, then reshaped it into the dramatic adventure it wanted to sell. So if the movie feels more like Paramount's idea of frontier heroism than a strict adaptation, that is because it was. The screen version is less of a direct translation and more of a studio-built legend, one built around the idea of imperial duty as grand adventure. Number 15. The cast could have looked very different. One of the most fun behind-the-scenes facts is how many major names were reportedly connected to the project during development. AFI's production notes mention names such as Cary Grant, Ronald Colman, Ray Milland, Frederick Marsh, Douglas Fairbanks Jr., and others in connection with earlier plans or casting possibilities. Just imagine how different the film might feel with Cary Grant's elegance, Ronald Colman's polish, or Frederick March's intensity at the center. But in the end, it became a Gary Cooper picture. Cooper gave the story less theatrical flourish and more quiet nerves, the kind of courage that seems almost embarrassed to announce itself. Number 14. This movie helped push Cooper into a new level of stardom. By 1935, Gary Cooper was already a major name, but The Lives of Bengal Lancer helped strengthen his image as the calm, lanky, quietly heroic leading man audiences trusted. Here he plays Lieutenant Alan McGregor, a seasoned officer serving on India's dangerous northwest frontier. Cooper's McGregor is brave, dryly funny, and emotionally guarded, the kind of man who does not need long speeches to prove courage. That quality became central to Cooper's screen legend. He could make restraint feel heroic. In a film about command, sacrifice, and danger, restraint became one of the most powerful things on screen. Number 13. The movie was not just about one hero, it was built around a trio. The emotional engine of the movie is not only Cooper. It is the relationship between three officers: McGregor, played by Cooper, Forsyth, played by Francois Tone, and Donald Stone, played by Richard Cromwell. McGregor is the experienced soldier. Forsyth brings wit, elegance, and recklessness. Stone is young, vulnerable, and desperate to prove himself, especially because his father is the commanding officer. That triangle gives the movie more feeling than a simple action plot. It becomes a story about men trying to look brave before they really understand what bravery costs. And the danger has a memorable face too. Douglas Dumbrell plays Muhammad Khan, the villain who gives the film its main threat. Dumbrell was one of those dependable old Hollywood actors who could bring instant menace to a story. And here he helps turn the officer's friendship and bravery into something that is to be tested under pressure. That is what a strong villain does in this kind of story. He does not only create danger, he reveals what the heroes are made of, and whether their courage can survive when friendship, loyalty, and fear are all being pushed to the breaking point. Number 12. The father-son wound gives the film emotional weight. Sergei Standing plays Colonel Stone, Donald's father, and his coldness towards his son becomes one of the film's most important emotional threads. The colonel believes command requires distance. He will not openly favor his son. He barely seems able to show tenderness, but that stiffness wounds Donald deeply. For modern viewers, this may be one of the film's most accessible emotional ideas. Behind the military spectacle, there is a young man longing for his father's approval. The movie's idea of command may be old-fashioned, but the ache underneath is not. A son wants to know that his father sees him. A father hides love behind duty. And suddenly, the film's grandest idea becomes personal. If duty demands that much distance, that much silence, and that much sacrifice, what does it cost the people who are asked to live by it? That question gives the adventure more weight, because beneath the uniforms and bravery, the lives of Bengal Lancer is also asking whether sacrifice still feels noble when it wounds the people close to you. Number 11. Franchise tone keeps the movie from becoming too stiff. One of the smartest things about the lives of Bengal Lancer is that it is not all grim duty and clenched jaws. Franchise Tone's Lieutenant Forsyth brings a lighter, sharper energy to the story. AFI notes that Henry Wilcoxon was originally cast in the role, but was replaced by Tone, reportedly because of scheduling conflicts involving Cecil B. DeMille's The Crusades. That change mattered because Tone gives the trio a very different rhythm. Gary Cooper brings quiet strength, Richard Cromwell brings vulnerability, but Tone brings wit, the kind of polished, teasing charm that keeps the movie moving even when the story turns serious. And that makes the sacrifice feel more human. Forsyth is not just another uniform in the line of duty. He is amused, stylish, reckless, and more feeling than he wants to admit. Without him, the film might have felt heavier. With him, the adventure has sparkle, friendship, and little old Hollywood mischief before the danger closes in. Number 10. Henry Hathaway turned it into a prestige triumph. Director Henry Hathaway had worked on westerns and studio assignments before this, but The Lives of Bengal Lancer becomes one of the films that lifted him into major Hollywood recognition. Britannica notes that the film received 7 Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture, and gave Hathaway his only nomination for Best Director. That matters because this was not treated as disposable adventure fare. In 1935, Hollywood saw it as big, serious, polished entertainment, the kind of film that could thrill audiences and impress the Academy. Hathaway's great achievement was making a studio-built world feel not just large, but lived in. A place where friendship, duty, and danger all seemed to press in at once. Number 9. The movie won an Oscar, but not for acting or directing. Official Oscar records show that The Lives of Bengal Lancer won for Assistant Director, credited to Clem Beauchamp and Paul Wayne. That category may sound unusual today, but for a production this large, it makes sense. This was a film full of crowds, horses, military movement, battle scenes, location work, and complicated logistics. In other words, the Oscar it won was for helping manage the thing that makes the movie feel so big, old Hollywood scale. Sometimes the magic of a classic film is not only in the faces we remember, it is in the hundreds of moving parts that somehow end up looking effortless. Number 8. The film sold courage at the right moment. In the mid-1930s, movie audiences were living through the Great Depression and watching the world grow more unstable overseas. Adventure films offered danger, honor, escape, and order. The Lives of Bengal Lancer gave viewers a world where courage still seemed clear. Men could be frightened and still stand firm. Friendship could be tested and still hold. Sacrifice could hurt, but still means something. That is part of why the film mattered. It was not just spectacle, it was reassurance. For audiences who had lived through uncertainty, the movie offered a fantasy of steadiness. A place where loyalty mattered, duty had shape, and brave men could hold the line when everything beyond the fort looked dangerous. And maybe that is one reason the film can still connect today. We may see the larger history more clearly now, but the longing for courage, loyalty, steadiness, and friendship has not disappeared. That is part of what still gives the movie its pull. That emotional promise helps explain why the film could still feel so stirring in 1935, and why its images of courage, command, and sacrifice still carry force today. Number 7. The film was admired in Britain too. The movie did not only connect with American audiences. AFI notes that The Lives of Bengal Lancer was screened for the King and Queen of England in March 1935 and became a major success in England. That is a huge clue to how the film played at the time. To many British viewers, especially in 1935, this was not merely an American adventure picture. It could also feel like a stirring tribute to duty, sacrifice, and command. The film gave British imperial mythology the full Paramount treatment. Dramatic lighting, polished stars, sweeping action, and a story where order stands firm against chaos. Today, that same vision feels much more complicated, but in 1935, it could feel noble, thrilling, and deeply flattering. Number 6. The screenplay passed through many hands. AFI lists multiple credited writers, including Waldemar Young, John L. Balderston, Ahmed Abdullah, Grover Jones, and William Slavens McNutt. That helps explain why the movie has such a mixture of tones. Military adventure, buddy comedy, father-son drama, sacrifice, torture, rescue, and imperial pageantry. It was not a tiny story polished by one lonely writer. It was a major studio construction, shaped, rewritten, reworked, and engineered for impact. And here's a question for classic film fans. How much do you think a viewer's perspective changes what they see in a movie? Because with a film like this, one audience could see stirring adventure, another could see imperial pride, and another could twist the same images into something far darker. The movie itself stays the same, but the meaning can shift depending on who is watching. Number 5. Paramount recruited extras from very different communities. AFI's notes say the production recruited people from nearby reservations and ranching areas and South Asian agricultural worker communities in California to fill out crowds and battle scenes. That detail is fascinating, but it also reminds us how complicated these films can be. Hollywood wanted a sweeping visual world, but it was working through the assumptions and limitations of its time. For viewers today, this is a good moment to hold two truths together. The production scale is impressive, but the representation reflects a very old studio system. We can appreciate the craft while also recognizing the worldview belongs to another era. Number 4. Even the lunch arrangements became revealing. One of the stranger details in AFI's notes involves food. A contemporary report said some Hindu extras had difficulty with the lunches Paramount provided because of dietary and caste concerns around how the meals were prepared. That is such a small detail, but it says a lot. Paramount could build forts, stage battles, and move hundreds of people through the desert, but still struggle to understand the cultural realities of some of the people it hired. This one reminds us that the Dream Factory was still a factory, impressive, ambitious, and sometimes limited by the assumptions of its time. Number 3. The sets were valuable enough for Cecil B. DeMille. This is one of those perfect old Hollywood facts. The sets from The Lives of Bengal Lancer were reportedly saved and later reused with alterations for Cecil B. DeMille's The Crusades. That tells you two things at once. First, Paramount had invested a serious physical world for the movie. Second, studios were incredibly practical. If a set looked grand, it did not have to live only once. In Golden Age Hollywood, spectacle could be recycled, redressed, and reborn. The same walls that helped create one vision of empire could later be transformed into a completely different historical epic. And now we return to the strange rumor from the beginning, the one that changes how the whole film's afterlife feels. Number 2. The Hitler rumor reveals the film's most unsettling afterlife. The claim that Adolf Hitler admired The Lives of Bengal Lancer has followed the movie for decades. One key source often connected to that story is Sir Yvonne Kirkpatrick, a British diplomat who met Hitler in 1937 and later wrote about Hitler's reaction to the film. This needs to be handled carefully. The film was not made as Nazi propaganda. It was not intended as a message for Hitler. Most audiences who enjoyed it saw a polished adventure about bravery, loyalty, and sacrifice. But Kirkpatrick's account makes the afterlife of the film deeply uncomfortable. The disturbing part is not simply that Hitler reportedly admired the film, it is why he reportedly admired it. He seems to have read its British imperial fantasy as a model of hierarchy, discipline, and domination, a meaning far darker than the old Hollywood adventure most audiences saw on screen. That is what makes the rumors so important to handle responsibly. It is not just gossip. It shows how the same images that one audience sees as adventure can be read by another audience as something much more dangerous. Number 1. The real legacy is that The Lives of Bengal Lancer is both thrilling and revealing. And that brings us back to the heart of the movie. The Lives of Bengal Lancer helped strengthen Gary Cooper's heroic image, gave Henry Hathaway one of his great early triumphs, and showed Paramount operating at full adventure movie power. It also shows how old Hollywood often turned distant history and empire into sweeping entertainment. That is what makes the film so fascinating today. It still has excitement, star power, friendship, sacrifice, and the sweep of a grand studio adventure. But today, we can also see the larger history surrounding that spectacle. In 1935, many viewers saw a rousing Gary Cooper adventure. British audiences could recognize a romantic image of duty and command, and Kirkpatrick's troubling account reminds us that the same images could be read in a far darker way. The movie did not change, the viewer did. That may be the most revealing part of all. So I'm curious, when you watch The Lives of Bengal Lancer, what do you see first? Do you see a grand Gary Cooper adventure, a beautifully made 1930s time capsule, a story about duty and command, or an example of how different audiences can see very different things in the same film. There may not be just one answer, and that is part of why this movie is still worth talking about. If you enjoy classic Hollywood stories with the sparkle still intact, but the history brought into focus, please like, subscribe, and join us again here on Flashback Rewind, where nostalgia never grows old.